The Strat once promised Vegas for everyone. $5 blackjack, bottomless buffets, a view for every budget. But today, its casino floor is a ghost town. Why? Because in a move that stunned the industry, its CEO admitted they deliberately drove away the so-called Riff Raff in hopes of luring luxury bettors. The result? Empty tables, silent slot machines, livelihoods on the line. When a casino decides certain gamblers aren't welcome, what happens next? And can a place built for the people survive having none left? On the north edge of the Strip, a new kind of Vegas landmark rose in the 1990s. The Stratosphere's tower, visible for miles, wasn't just a skyline trophy, it was a promise. Inside, the message was clear: anyone could afford to play. Blackjack tables with $5 minimums lined the floor, drawing crowds who didn't need a high roller's bankroll to join the action. The buffet, famous for its $9.99 price tag, offered a full spread for less than the cost of a cocktail at the big-name resorts down the street. Parking was free, and the Skypod observation deck welcomed families, solo travelers, and locals alike, all for a fraction of what other Strip attractions charged. The casino floor buzzed with life from noon to midnight. A construction worker from Cleveland might sit elbow to elbow with a retiree from Phoenix, both nursing cheap beers and swapping stories between hands. The drinks flowed, not because of bottle service, but because cocktail waitresses made regular rounds, and every guest, no matter their wardrobe, was treated like a player. The dealers knew regulars by name, and first-timers were just as likely to get a friendly tip as a stern warning about splitting tens. The Stratosphere's success wasn't built on exclusivity or velvet ropes. It thrived on packed tables, crowded elevators to the top, and lines at the buffet that snaked past penny slots. The People's Casino meant exactly that. A place where a week's pay could stretch across a weekend, and no one felt out of place. For visitors priced out of the Bellagio or Wynn, the Stratosphere felt like a piece of old Vegas, unpretentious, accessible, and alive with possibility. It was the rare spot where the city's promise, anyone can win, anyone belongs, wasn't just marketing, it was the business model. In those years, the Stratosphere didn't need to chase whales. Its strength was in numbers. The more, the merrier. Every empty seat was a missed opportunity, every filled one a small victory for the idea that Vegas could still be for everyone. Casino profits at the Stratosphere depended on a simple rule: keep the floor busy and the money follows. Every open seat meant another bet, another round, another shot at a jackpot. Dealers hustled from table to table, not because they were chasing whales, but because the crowd never thinned out. On a Friday night, the sound of chips and laughter carried across the pit. Bartenders poured drinks without pause, and cocktail servers walked their feet sore, trading quick smiles for steady tips. The real engine wasn't high-stakes glamour, it was volume. A full table of $5 blackjack players could out-earn a lonely high roller just by the sheer number of hands played and the constant churn of small bets. The buffet line kept the energy flowing, feeding hundreds who'd wander back to the slots or the craps tables, wallets lighter, but spirits high. Even the penny machines brought in steady traffic, each spin a drop in the bucket that, together, filled the casino's coffers. The staff, dealers, waitresses, porters relied on this constant flow. Tips stacked up not from a single big spender, but from dozens of regulars and tourists, each tossing $1 or $2 for good service. A long-time local remembers, you'd walk in after your shift, and it didn't matter if you had 20 bucks or 200. There was always a spot for you. The crowd made the place feel alive. You won some, you lost some, but you always felt like you belonged. This was the math that made the Stratosphere work. It wasn't about squeezing every dollar from a handful of guests. It was about welcoming as many as possible, knowing that volume would cover the margins. The casino's success depended on that open door policy, on being the place where anyone could take a shot. And everyone's money was good. Every full table, every busy bar, every line at the elevator meant another night where the numbers added up. That's what kept the lights bright and the tips flowing year after year. In 2017, a new owner arrived with a plan to change everything. Golden Entertainment, a company known for its regional casinos and taverns, took over the Stratosphere and began rolling out a vision that would leave the old identity behind. The first move was cosmetic but unmistakable. The Stratosphere name disappeared, replaced by a stripped-down logo and a new brand, the STRAT. The familiar neon tower still stood, but the message had changed. The casino that once prided itself on being for everyone was now dressing itself up for a different crowd. Investor slides and glossy brochures promised a reimagined experience and elevated guest profile. Press releases spoke of modernization and upgrading the customer base. In earnings calls, the language grew more pointed. Golden Entertainment's CEO, Blake Sartini, outlined the new direction. We're focused on attracting a higher value guest and repositioning the property for the premium segment. The strategy was clear: move away from the masses and chase after a more exclusive clientele. The rebrand wasn't just a new sign on the building, it was a public declaration that the old formula, volume, accessibility, and inclusivity, was out. In its place, management laid out a blueprint for a different kind of casino. The Strat would no longer compete on price or welcome every walk of life. Instead, it would raise its standards and, by extension, its barriers to entry. The pitch to investors was blunt: fewer low-margin guests, more high-spending ones. The old crowd, the regulars who filled the tables and tipped the staff, were no longer the target. Golden Entertainment's investor decks from 2018 and 2019 spelled out the priorities: capital improvements, new restaurants, higher room rates, and a shift to premium gaming. In one presentation, the company boasted of repositioning the Strat as a gateway to the new North Strip, with a focus on enhancing guest spend and quality. The language was careful, but the intent was unmistakable to those who had watched the property's history unfold. Rumors swirled on casino forums and among longtime employees about the real meaning behind the new policies. Critics accused management of trying to clean up the clientele, a coded way of saying the days of the People's Casino were over. While no executive ever uttered the word Riff Raff in public, the changes spoke for themselves. The Strat was no longer a place where anyone could walk in and feel at home. The new brand wore its ambitions on its sleeve, and the city took notice. The moment the new logo went up, the divide was set. The Strat would be a test case. Could a casino built on openness survive by shutting its doors to the very people who kept it alive? The answer would play out in the months and years to come, as policy after policy rolled out under the banner of premium experience. The new Strat didn't just change its name, it changed the rules of entry, one policy at a time. The first shock came at the tables. Blackjack minimums jumped overnight, climbing from the familiar $5 and $10 to $15, then $25, even on slow weeknights. Regulars who once stretched $100 over hours now found themselves priced out after a handful of hands. The craps pit followed suit, with $15 minimums becoming the new floor. Roulette, once a haven for casual players, now required double the old buy-in just to spin the wheel. The slot machines too lost their appeal for the value crowd. Payout percentages quietly dipped, and the penny slots, long a draw for budget gamblers, were replaced with machines demanding higher denominations and fewer chances to win. The math was simple: more money in, less money out, and fewer people willing to play. Parking, once free and easy, became a new hurdle. The Strat began charging $20 per day, matching the most expensive properties on the Strip. For locals and day trippers, even a short visit now came with a bill before a single chip hit the felt. Resort fees, which had hovered around $20 in the old days, surged past $40 per night. Guests booking a room online discovered their bargain rates ballooned with hidden charges, fees that often exceeded the cost of the room itself. Affordable food vanished almost as quickly as the low-limit tables. The $9.99 buffet, a staple for families and late-night gamblers, was shuttered and replaced with upscale dining concepts. Breakfast specials were scrapped. The cheapest meal on property now rivaled what a visitor might pay at a celebrity chef restaurant down the street. The message was clear. If you're looking for a deal, look elsewhere. Dress codes and security policies tightened. Guests in shorts and t-shirts, once the norm, were turned away from certain bars and restaurants. Security staff patrolled the floor, enforcing new standards that signaled who belonged and who didn't. Longtime regulars described the new atmosphere as cold, even hostile, compared to the easygoing vibe of the past. Every change rolled out with corporate precision. Investor reports spelled out the intent: elevate the guest profile. Internal memos, as recounted by former staff, laid out the new priorities: maximize spend per visitor, reduce low-margin traffic, and push for higher yields per square foot. For anyone paying attention, it was obvious. The STRAT was no longer interested in being the people's casino. The doors were still open, but the welcome mat had been pulled away, one price hike and policy at a time. Dealers who once greeted a steady stream of players now watched the felt gather dust. One dealer with 15 years behind the table describes shifts spent shuffling cards for empty chairs. I used to make close to $200 a night in tips. Last week it was $40, she says. Bartenders echo the same story. Where they once hustled non-stop, now they might pour a dozen drinks in an hour. You count on the crowd for your paycheck. No crowd, no tips. The impact isn't just personal. Numbers tell the rest. Occupancy rates, which hovered near 87% before the changes, have slipped to the mid-70s. That means hundreds of rooms sit empty on weeknights, and the casino floor is quieter than anyone can remember. Table game revenue has dropped sharply, echoing the silence that hangs over the pit. Staff hours have been slashed, and some have taken on second jobs or left entirely. The sense of community, the buzz that once defined the place, has vanished along with the regulars. For the people who work here, the promise of Vegas has been replaced by uncertainty, and the question on everyone's mind is how much further there is to fall. Downtown casinos took a different path. While the STRAT chased so-called premium guests, places like El Cortez doubled down on accessibility. The $5 blackjack tables never disappeared. Free parking stayed put. On weekends, the pit bosses at El Cortez watched their floors fill up with locals and tourists who had been priced out elsewhere. Gaming revenue at downtown properties climbed by more than 10% over the same period. The STRAT's numbers dropped. Even as the STRAT's table game revenue slipped by double digits, down as much as 20% year over year in some quarters, El Cortez reported steady gains and packed tables. Dealers there did not face empty seats. They hustled to keep up with the action. It was not just El Cortez. The Palms and Main Street Station kept their low-limit games and saw their regulars return. Downtown's occupancy rates hovered above 80%, while the STRAT struggled to keep its numbers in the low 70s. The irony was plain. While the STRAT tried to climb the luxury ladder, the properties that stayed true to the old Vegas formula, cheap drinks, approachable tables, and a come-as-you-are welcome, thrived. The customers, the STRAT turned away, found a new home, and they brought their money with them. Desperation set in as empty tables and vacant hotel rooms became the new normal. In a move that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier, the STRAT rolled out a string of emergency promotions. The most telling, free admission to the Sky Pod for locals, a perk that once would have seemed unnecessary in a place known for crowds. Players Club offers multiplied, table minimums quietly dropped on slow nights, and resort fees were bundled away in online deals. Even parking, once a symbol of the casino's new exclusivity, was discounted or thrown in for returning guests. The message had flipped. Anyone, please, come back. What played out at the Strat was a warning written in neon. When a casino forgets who built its business, the cost isn't just measured in lost revenue or shuttered buffets. It's felt in the silence where there used to be laughter, in the faces of workers sent home early, and in the scramble to lure back the very customers who were pushed away. Every free SkyPod ticket handed out was an admission that the old model, built on volume and accessibility, wasn't just tradition, it was survival. The lesson echoed through the industry. You can raise your prices and tighten your doors, but you can't manufacture demand where trust has been broken. In the 2 years following the Strat's shift to higher table minimums and increased fees, occupancy rates fell from pre-pandemic highs above 87% to around 76%, while employee tip income dropped by more than half. Golden Entertainment's own investor presentations confirmed the strategy. A focus on attracting so-called higher value guests, even if it meant losing the traditional customer base. Yet, as table revenue declined and competitors like El Cortez thrived by keeping $5 tables, the Strat's gamble on exclusivity left its floors empty. Despite promotional rollbacks and free SkyPod offers, many former patrons have not returned. What remains uncertain is whether management will acknowledge the lasting damage or double down. The numbers are clear. Replacing inclusivity with selective policies cost the Strat its core business. In Las Vegas, history shows volume and accessibility built success. Without them, even the tallest tower can stand empty.